Very good.
Brett Hudson.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the Shop Trading Hours Amendment Bill, a bill that doesn't take away rights but offers choice. Offers choices to communities to express through their local authorities as to whether they would like to see shops being able to open on what is currently a restricted trading day. It offers the choice for those territorial authorities to accede to the wishes of their communities or not. If they do pass whether a bylaw or a policy that permits trading, it gives choice to businesses, Mr. Speaker, whether or not they choose to open. And lastly, and most importantly, it offers the ultimate choice to each employee as to whether or not they wish to work on that Easter Sunday. And should they choose not to, it has provisions to provide protection for that employee, particularly if the employer seeks to take some advantage or later consequential action for their choice. It is a bill that is all about choice. I'd like to speak about a couple of elements around the Select Committee, sir, and particularly the submissions from local body. But before I get to that, I think one of the reasons we now find ourselves in a second reading with a bill returned to the House without amendment, just in its bar one form, is the comprehension failure on the other side of the House, which is exhibited tonight by the Speaker, who's just taken his seat. His claim is that this bill would enforce cost on every local authority across the country. He is 100% wrong and couldn't be further wrong, because he sat in that Select Committee for this item of business, and it was made very clear to the members of the committee that councils could choose to maintain the status quo. And if they chose to maintain the status quo, there would be no cost of a bylaw or a policy or any other measure, Mr. Lees-Galloway. So your statement just shows that the member there has no fundamental understanding of the bill, so is hardly in a great position to recommend to others whether they should support or oppose it. But, Mr. Speaker, that brings me on to the Select Committee, because the Select Committee did seek to undertake work, or the members on this side sought to undertake work to improve the bill. And there were a number of amendments that, had the bill made it through the Select Committee process and had the track changes adopted, that would, we feel, have improved it. Now, being a first-term MP, most occasions are learning occasions, and I have been told by colleagues on both sides of the House that in the past, opposition members, and a great example of this I was given was Sir Michael Cullen, opposition members felt that it was their duty to work constructively in a Select Committee to improve a bill, even if, ultimately, when the bill returned to the House, they would oppose it. In this particular instance, Mr. Speaker, the opposition members chose to do the opposite. They chose, instead of improving the bill and returning it to House in a better form, they chose instead to use the power of their equal number of votes to have all changes thrown out. Now, I heard the member making some noise opposite about other bills. Well, I can say from the limited experience I have had in this term that if I look at the bills like Sue Moroney's Paid Parental Leave in Government Administration and the Official Information Act amendment that recently passed under Adrian Rutafei, the government admin, or the government members on the Government Admin Committee, worked constructively to help make amendments for each of those bills, taking on board the message that had been given to me that our duty was to at least ensure that a bill, if it was returned to the House in the best state it could be. Unfortunately, the members opposite, in this instance, don't think that should apply to them. It's actually worse, Mr. Speaker. There was an instance in a Select Committee meeting where one of the Labor members said, "Why are we even bothering doing this? Because we're just going to vote against it in the end anyway." And that just leaves me with a cold chill, wondering if, for the Labor Party, democracy only extends to items that they agree with, because that seems to be, through their behaviour, what their philosophy is. The other area I want to touch on briefly, Mr. Speaker, is the submissions from local authorities, local bodies. Now, in the early 2000s, the previous government passed a general competency clause in the Local Government Act, which gave local bodies far wider remit to undertake actions, to spend money, to take on projects than they had had in the past. And yet, what we heard, I've never yet heard a council say, "I don't want to have general competence." Similarly, I've never yet heard a councillor say that we, the council, don't want to take on board the wishes of the local community, except in this instance. In this instance, what they want is they want central government to make a blanket statement for their local communities. They don't want the power, in this instance, to listen to their communities and give their communities what their communities want. It would seem to me that sitting on this committee, Mr. Speaker, that there's a possibility there that exists, at least amongst some of our territorial authorities, a wish to have a wide range of powers, but as soon as a difficult problem comes along, to kick that up to central government and take away local choice and have central government make the decision for them. Well, Mr. Speaker, I hope that in the next stage we get some decent supplementary order papers to put back some of those amendments into the bill, and I commend this bill to the House.